The 2010s were dominated by players such as Crosby and Ovechkin, Kane and Taves, and even a player like Connor McDavid. Teams such as Chicago and Pittsburgh had major success throughout the decade. But who will dominate the 2020 decade? Will McDavid capture his first Stanley Cup? Will Matthews ever get out of the first round? Will a teenage phenom such as Connor Bedard be the best player in the world? All these questions are about to be answered, as I am going to simulate a full decade to see who dominates the 2020s. I left all the scoring and draft class quality all on medium. Head coach edit lines, yes, I will not be controlling anything about this simulation. And I will be simulating until the 2032-2033 season. And if you enjoyed this video and you're not subscribed already, at the end of year number 1, the Winnipeg Jets actually win the President's Trophy, followed up by Edmonton and Carolina. At the bottom of the league, we have the Blues, the Coyotes, the Kraken, and the Islanders. And no surprise here, Connor McDavid leads the NHL in points. What is a surprise, though, is that he only had 98 points. He was followed by Mark Scheifele, Matthews, Kucherov, Draisaitl, Huberdeau. Matthews would finish with the most goals at 47. Adam Fox would finish with most points as a defenseman with 87, followed by Drew Doughty, Roman Josi, Erik Karlsson, Josh Morrissey. Dougie Hamilton would actually have the most goals by a defenseman for the year. He had 20 goals. And the Winnipeg Jets actually win the Stanley Cup in year number 1. They beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games. And this is what the year 1 playoff bracket looked like. McDavid would take home the Art Ross. Scheifele would take home the Hart Trophy. Adam Fox would win the Norris. Jack Quinn would actually win the Calder Trophy. Josh Morrissey won the Conn Smythe Trophy. Jonathan Quick won the Vezina Trophy. No surprise with Bergeron winning the Selke. Scheifele won the Ted Lindsay, and Matthews won the Maurice Richard. Here are the players that retired in year number 1. Pretty much everybody who was already retired. San Jose has the first pick in the NHL entry draft, which means most likely Connor Bedard will be a San Jose Shark. And San Jose ends up picking Bedard first overall. He's an 85 overall sniper with franchise high potential. Mishkov goes number 2. Adam Fantilli actually drops to number 8. Here are the players that are free agents in the summer and could move on to a new team. Most notably, someone like Bergeron could leave the Bruins and actually join a different team. At the end of year number 2, the Washington Capitals win the President's Trophy and finished first in the league, followed by the Winnipeg Jets, the Boston Bruins, and the Colorado Avalanche. At the bottom of the league, we have the LA Kings, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Seattle Kraken. Marchand would end up finishing first in points, followed by McDavid, Pasternak, Draisaitl, and Connor Bedard in his rookie year. He scored 47 goals, 45 assists for 92 points in 82 games. McKinnon would actually have the most goals in the league with 53, followed by Ovi at age 38, Connor McDavid, and Connor Bedard. John Carlson would have the most points by a defenseman, followed by Thomas Chabot, Roman Josi, Adam Fox. For goalies, Connor Hellebuyck had the most wins with 48. And in year number 2, the Edmonton Oilers would win the Stanley Cup, with Connor McDavid winning his first Stanley Cup. Edmonton defeated Boston in the Stanley Cup Finals in 5 games. And here is the year 2 playoff bracket. And here is the points leaders for the playoffs. Brad Marchand won the Art Ross Trophy and the Hart Trophy. John Carlson would win the Norris Trophy. Bedard would of course win the Calder Trophy. The Conn Smythe went to Leon Draisaitl. The Vezina went to Connor Hellebuyck. The Selke Trophy went to Barkov. The Ted Lindsay to Marchand. And the Maurice Richard Trophy went to Nathan McKinnon. Here are the players that retired in year number 2. Joe Thornton, Corey Perry, Milan Lucic, Tyler Bozak. The major free agents of year number 2 are Sam Reinhart, Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, William Nylander. All these players might be on a new team next year. At the end of year number 3, the Florida Panthers finished first in the league, followed by the Winnipeg Jets and the Boston Bruins. At the bottom of the league, we have the LA Kings, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the New York Islanders. For points, Braden Point finished first in scoring with 108 points. Followed by Connor McDavid and Alexander Ovechkin. Ovi would actually have the most goals in the league with 62. Quinn Hughes led all defensemen in points with 74, followed by Hedman and Ekblad. Aaron Ekblad would have the most goals as a defenseman with 16. For goalies, Vasilevsky would have the most wins by any goaltender in the year with 44. Logan Cooley would have the most points as a rookie with 55. And the Winnipeg Jets would win their second Stanley Cup of this simulation. They beat the Florida Panthers in 5 games. And this is what your year 3 playoff bracket looks like. Braden Point would take home the Art Ross Trophy and the Hart Trophy. The Norris went to Victor Hedman. The Calder went to Logan Cooley. The Conn Smythe went to Kyle Connor. The Vezina went to Vasilevsky. The Selke Trophy would actually go to Connor McDavid. The Ted Lindsay would go to Braden Point. And the Maurice Richard would go to Alex Ovechkin. And Carolina would win the draft lottery. Here are the retired players for year number 3. Louis Eriksson, Mark Giordano. Here are the players that could be on the move this offseason through free agency. At the end of year 4, the Toronto Maple Leafs captured the President's Trophy as they finished first in the league, followed by the New York Rangers, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Vancouver Canucks. Mitch Marner would finish first in points with 110. He had 93 assists, followed by Matthews, Robertson, Ovechkin, and McDavid. Matthews would finish with the most goals with 63, followed by Ovechkin at 52 and Jason Robertson at 50. Adam Fox would lead all defensemen in scoring with 79 points in 80 games, followed by Charlie McAvoy and Cale Makar. Aaron Ekblad would have the most goals by a defenseman with 15, and Frederik Andersen would have the most wins by a goaltender in the season with 47, followed by Shesterkin and Allmark. And the Colorado Avalanche would win the Stanley Cup. They defeated Boston in the Stanley Cup Finals in 7 games, as Boston reaches the Stanley Cup Finals yet again without winning a Stanley Cup. And this is how the year 4 playoff bracket turned out. Mitch Marner would pick up the Art Ross Trophy and the Hart Memorial Trophy. Adam Fox would pick up the Norris Trophy. The Conn Smythe would go to Mikko Rantanen. And the Vezina goes to Copley. I gotta be honest, I have no idea who that guy is. The Selke went to Sebastian Aho. And the Maurice Richard went to Austin Matthews. The Pittsburgh Penguins would win the draft lottery. Here are the players that retired in year 4. Most notably, Patrice Bergeron. For goalies, Jonathan Quick, Craig Anderson, Yaroslav Halak, and here is the year 4 free agency list. Some notable names like Patrick Laine and Kaprizov, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Dylan Strome, Artemi Panarin, Brad Marchand. At the end of year number 5, the Tampa Bay Lightning win the President's Trophy and finish first in the entire league, followed by the Winnipeg Jets, the New York Rangers, and the Edmonton Oilers. At the bottom of the league, we have the Minnesota Wild, the Chicago Blackhawks, the St. Louis Blues, and the Philadelphia Flyers. Connor McDavid would end up finishing with the most points with 104, followed by Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Mitch Marner, Connor Bedard having his first 100-point season of his career. Austin Matthews would yet again have the most goals with 59, followed by Ovechkin, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, and Patrick Laine. Ovi is 41 years old, putting up 56 goals. That is absolutely bizarre. Adam Fox would yet again lead all defensemen in points with 70, followed by Quinn Hughes with 68 and Miro Heiskanen. Andrei Vasilevsky would have the most wins by any goaltender with 45, followed by Nadal Jokovic and Jake Ottinger. Somehow, someway, the Arizona Coyotes have won the Stanley Cup. They managed to beat the New York Rangers in 7 games in the Stanley Cup Finals. And this is what your Year 5 playoff bracket looks like. The Art Ross would go to Connor McDavid. The Hart Memorial Trophy would go to Mark Scheifele. The Norris Trophy would go to Victor Hedman. The Conn Smythe Trophy would go to Clayton Keller. The Vezina would go to Vasilevsky. The Selke would go to Zetterberg, who was on the Carolina Hurricanes. The Ted Lindsay to Mark Scheifele. And the Maurice Richard to Austin Matthews. San Jose has won yet again another draft lottery, and here is who retired in year number 5. Nicholas Backstrom retired, Brad Marchand, Phil the Thrill Kessel, Jonathan Taves, Voracek, Oshie, Krejci, Carlson, Couture. For goalies, we have Bobrovsky and Cam Talbot. Here's what the year 5 free agency looks like. Most notably, Quinn Hughes has tested free agency, which means he could be leaving the Vancouver Canucks, as well as Alex Ovechkin, who could end up leaving the Washington Capitals. At the end of year number 6, the Colorado Avalanche win the President's Trophy, finishing first in the entire NHL, followed by the Edmonton Oilers, the Washington Capitals, the New York Rangers, and the Calgary Flames. At the bottom of the league, we have the Florida Panthers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Arizona Coyotes. McDavid would yet again lead the league in points with 125 points, followed by Leon Draisaitl with 108, Jason Robertson, Tage Thompson, and Mishkov would have the most goals with 56, followed by McDavid, Pasternak, and Robertson. Adam Fox would end up having the most points as a defenseman with 82, followed by Cale Makar with 76, Charlie McAvoy, Bowen Byram, and Devon Taves. Thomas Chabot would lead all defensemen in goals with 20. For goalies, Gabriel, I'm not even going to pronounce that name, had the most wins out of any goaltender with 43, followed by Igor Shesterkin and Stuart Skinner. And the Toronto Maple Leafs end their Stanley Cup drought, winning the Stanley Cup in 7 games against the San Jose Sharks. And here is what the Year 6 playoff bracket looks like. Connor McDavid would win the Art Ross Trophy and the Hart Trophy. Cale Makar would take home the Norris Trophy. Austin Matthews would take home the Conn Smythe Trophy. The Vezina to Dostal. The Selke Trophy would go to Alexander Barkov. The Ted Lindsay to Connor McDavid. And the Maurice Richard Trophy would go to Mishkov. And here are the players that retired in year number 6. Some notable ones like Patrick Kane and Evgeny Malkin, Blake Wheeler, Jamie Benn. For goalies, Frederik Andersen and Semyon Varlamov. And here is year 6 free agency, headlined by Bowen Byram and Mo Seider. Also Brady Tkachuk, Thomas Chabot, Mark Stone. At the end of year number 7, the Toronto Maple Leafs finished first in the entire NHL and win the President's Trophy. For points, Austin Matthews would have the most out of any player with 117. Followed by Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers, Mitch Marner. Austin Matthews would also have the most goals with 57. Quinn Hughes would have the most points as a defenseman for the season with 74, followed by Charlie McAvoy, Adam Fox, and Mo Seider. For goalies, Mackenzie Blackwood would have the most wins out of any goaltender with 43. The Carolina Hurricanes would end up beating the Winnipeg Jets in 7 games to win the Stanley Cup. And here is what the Year 7 playoff bracket looks like. Austin Matthews would take home the Art Ross Trophy, and yet again, Mark Scheifele will win the Hart Trophy. Quinn Hughes would take home the Norris Trophy. The Conn Smythe Trophy would go to Natchez. The Vezina would go to Kakkonen. The Selke Trophy would go to Alexander Barkov. Mark Scheifele would also take home the Ted Lindsay Award. And the Maurice Richard would go to Austin Matthews. And here are the players that retired in year number 7. Some notable ones like Alex Ovechkin and Anze Kopitar. Ovi finished with 2,000 points, which is absolutely insane. For goalies, Marc-Andre Fleury actually retires at age 44. He finishes with 709 wins, which is the most wins any goaltender has ever gotten in NHL history. And here is the year 7 free agency list. At the end of year 8, the New Jersey Devils finished first in the NHL and win the President's Trophy. At the bottom of the league, we have the St. Louis Blues, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. For points, Connor McDavid yet again finishes first, followed by Austin Matthews and Leon Draisaitl. For defensemen, Jacob Chychrun would have 73 points, which leads all defensemen, followed by Charlie McAvoy and Adam Fox. Dougie Hamilton would yet again lead all defensemen in goals with 21. And for goalies, Jake Ottinger would have the most wins with 42. The Arizona Coyotes would actually beat the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals. They won in 7 games, and this is what the year 8 playoff bracket looks like. McDavid would take home the Art Ross Trophy and the Hart Trophy. Jacob Chychrun would actually take home the Norris Trophy. The Conn Smythe would yet again go to Clayton Keller. The Vezina went to Goddard. The Selke would go to Frondell. The Ted Lindsay to McDavid, and the Maurice Richard to McDavid, which means Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel tied for the most goals in the season. And here are the players that retired in year number 8. Most notably, Steven Stamkos, JT Miller, Victor Hedman, Ryan Johansson. For goalies, Robin Lehner. And here are the free agents in year number 8. It's headlined by Elias Pettersson and Jack Hughes. And here are the goalies that are free agents in this offseason, headlined by Askarov. At the end of year number 9, the New Jersey Devils finished first in the entire NHL and win the President's Trophy. Jack Eichel would lead the league in points with 103. Eichel would also have the most goals in the league with 56. Henry Muse would actually lead all defensemen in points with 65, and Muse would actually have the most goals by a defenseman as well with 18. For goalies, Jake Ottinger would lead all goalies in wins with 43. The Ottawa Senators would win the Stanley Cup, beating the Vegas Golden Knights in 7 games. And here's what the year 9 playoff bracket looks like. Jack Eichel would win the Art Ross Trophy. Michael Hage would win the Hart Trophy. Muse would win the Norris. The Conn Smythe would go to Tim Stützle. The Vezina would go to Wallstat. The Selke to Zetterberg. The Ted Lindsay to Hage. And the Maurice Richard would go to Jack Eichel. And here are the players that retired in year number 9. Most notably, Sidney Crosby. For goalies, we have Connor Hellebuck and Allmark. And here are the free agents in year number 9. Most notably, Shane Wright. 3-time Hart winner Mark Scheifele. And here are the goalies who are free agents in year number 9. In the 10th and final season of this simulation, the Toronto Maple Leafs have finished first, which means they win the President's Trophy. At the bottom of the league, we have the New York Islanders, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Montreal Canadiens. Austin Matthews would have the most points by any player with 111. Mishkov would have the most goals with 54. Quinn Hughes would have the most points by a defenseman with 71. Heiskanen would have the most goals by a defenseman, and Jake Ottinger would yet again have the most wins by a goalie with 42. And the Dallas Stars would beat the Buffalo Sabres in the Stanley Cup Finals to capture the Stanley Cup. And this is what your year 10 playoff bracket looks like. Austin Matthews would take home the Art Ross Trophy and the Hart Trophy. Quinn Hughes would take home the Norris. The Conn Smythe would go to Jason Robertson. Stuart Skinner would take home the Vezina. The Selke would go to Matty Beniers. The Ted Lindsay to Austin Matthews, and the Maurice Richard to Mishkov. And here are the players that retired in year number 10. Mika Zibanejad, Johnny Gaudreau, Gabriel Landeskog, Teuvo Teravainen. For goalies, John Gibson, Matt Murray, and Jordan Binnington. The decade was filled with surprises, but who do you think was the best player of the 2020s? Within the decade, McDavid had 4 Art Ross trophies, 2 Hart trophies, 1 Maurice Richard trophy, and 1 Stanley Cup. Mark Scheifele had 3 Hart trophies and 2 Stanley Cups. Austin Matthews had 2 Art Ross trophies, 1 Hart trophy, 4 Maurice Richard trophies, 1 Conn Smythe, and 1 Stanley Cup. Somehow, the Arizona Coyotes would tie the Winnipeg Jets for the most Stanley Cups won in the decade with 2. Let me know in the comments who you think was the best player of the 2020 decade.